Welcome back to Smith History, separating the Smith from the myth. I'm your host, Brian Smith, historian of my own life, your friendly neighborhood historian, mythbuster, and former family troublemaker. Today I dive deeper into the year 1970, a pivotal moment in Smith history lore, from the infamous laundromat incident to the moments that still bring back that delicious smell of Neumeister's donuts. This episode peels back the layers of Smith myth to reveal the real stories beneath. This episode is the story of my 12th year of life. One mom, one dad, 3 brothers, one small Midwestern town, and one magical year in time that I didn't realize was magical until it was gone. So settle in. Let's go back to Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Upper, as we locals called it, where the Smith boys ran wild, baseball was king, and the world outside seemed very far away. Upper Sandusky sits in northern Ohio, named for its location on the Sandusky River. It was once the heartland of the Wyandotte Indians, and the town still carries their legacy, from local landmarks to the stories woven into Harrison Smith Park. By 1970, Upper was the definition of idyllic Middle America. A Norman Rockwell painting come to life. Slow progress, slower traffic, and absolutely no national food chains, no industrial factories, no drugs, no crime, no chaos. Just small storefronts, local car dealerships, the Busy Bee, Neumeister's Bakery, and the Daily Chief Union, our proud little newspaper, which my brother Jeff famously mispronounced as the Daily Chiffonian when he first read the headline. My mother laughed so hard she nearly dropped her coffee. The big news in town: tractor pulls, hospital announcements, and whatever the local sports teams were doing. That was Upper, and we loved it. 1970 kicked off with Ohio State disappointing me in the Rose Bowl, and the Kansas City Chiefs shocking the world by winning the Super Bowl. But the real sports drama was happening right in Upper, because Jeff and I were in the paper constantly that year. We played Little League for the Elks, and let me tell you, Jeff was a force. He was tiny before his growth spurt, but he played shortstop and pitched like he was 6 feet tall. But the name fit. He was a shortstop. But he was fearless, quick, smart. He even turned a double play once, which in Little League was like seeing Halley's Comet. Jeff went 5-0 as a starter in 1970. Our coach Martin would start him and then bring in a reliever to finish the game. And me, well, I was the star of the team, the MVP of the league that year. I lived and breathed baseball. I led the league in home runs, batting average, and RBIs. They call that the Triple Crown. However, my early success in life didn't exactly follow me into adulthood, but in 1970, I was unstoppable. Jeff and I won the Little League title that year, our second title in 3 years. We practically lived at Westinghouse Field, and when we weren't there, we were at Harrison Smith Park, our second home. That park was huge for a small town. A large pond, a baseball field, a swimming pool, picnic buildings, and even a concrete teepee honoring the Wyandotte Indians. Coach Martin was my first coach, and he taught me professionalism, poise, and patience, 3 things I didn't always have at age 12. At the end of that Little League season, we even took several cars and went to Municipal Stadium in Cleveland, Ohio, my very first Cleveland Indians game, a moment I will never forget. Rick and Randy were 7 years old in 1970. Twins, living in their own little world, One day, Jeff and Rick nearly burned down our house at 329 8th Street by pouring gasoline on an anthill. Apparently, they didn't know gasoline was combustible. Our mom was also combustible. She was a disciplinarian in the style of Coach Vince Lombardi. Once, in a moment of frustration, I called her Lombardi as an insult. She took it as a compliment. She was barely over 5 foot tall, but she had 4 boys, and she wielded an extension cord like a samurai sword when the belt didn't work. Dad, he left discipline to Mom. He was soft-spoken, military style. I don't remember him ever hitting us, but one evening when Jeff and I wouldn't stop talking at bedtime, he made us stand in a dark closet for an hour. We learned to be quiet at bedtime after that. Dad worked at the iconic Marion Power Shovel Company in Marion. It seemed God put everything in place for us and kept our world sheltered. Because in 1970, the world was full of shocking news. The Apollo 13 accident. Kent State, 4 students killed and 9 students injured just a couple of hours from our home. But our dad had no sympathy for what he called radical students. The Beatles broke up in 1970, and it was a cultural earthquake. Jeffrey McDonald, accused of murdering his pregnant wife and 2 daughters at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The world was changing fast, but in Upper, our life stayed simple. Living in Upper Sandusky had its own rhythm. Baseball practices, bike rides, and the Smith boys running around town like we owned it. I remember one particular day that has stayed with me for over 56 years, because mostly, well, Jeff made sure none of us would forget it. Jeff and I were tearing down the streets of Upper, doing whatever 12 and 10-year-old boys do when they think they're invincible. Suddenly, Jeff stopped. He didn't look right. He didn't sound right. And then he said the words no older brother wants to hear on a public sidewalk. I don't feel so good. This wasn't the I ate too many donuts kind of not feeling good. This was what experts would describe as explosive gastrointestinal distress kind of not feeling good. We couldn't make it home. We couldn't make it a block. We couldn't make it anywhere except the nearest possible refuge, which happened to be the bathroom inside the local laundromat. Now, that laundromat is still standing today, 56 years later, and every time I drive past it, I don't see washing machines. I see Jeff sprinting like an Olympic athlete toward the bathroom. He disappeared inside for a long time, a very long time. When he finally emerged, pale but determined, we started walking home. But Jeff's gastrointestinal episode was not done with him yet, or with the sidewalk. Let me just say the laundromat bathroom and that stretch of sidewalk were permanently altered that day. Permanently altered. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But in true Smith fashion, we kept walking. And that's what separates the Smith from the myth, because I was there. 1970 was the year we got a microwave oven. It felt like science fiction became a reality in our kitchen. Mom loved it, but I recall she still made homemade sugar donuts in her giant silver kettle on the stove. Neighborhood kids lined up at our door like it was Halloween. That summer, Jeff and I sold chocolate and peanut butter fudge door to door for our Little League team. Mom bought more than a few tins herself. And when I wasn't playing baseball, I mowed lawns and had a paper route. The brothers and I loved it when Mom took us to the countryside to pick berries along railroad tracks. I can still smell the warm summer air. My brothers and I attended South School just down the block. Recess meant soccer with my classmates. I remember my best friend at the time was Rex Culver. Mom had it made, as all 3 of my brothers and I went just down the block to South School. Every week, South School bussed us in the middle of the school day to a church for Bible study. Yes, they did that in 1970. I also remember visiting the local museum. On weekends, my brothers and I walked to Neumeister's Bakery for donuts and chocolate milk. The Busy Bee store was just around the corner from our house. Lawson's was nearby. Some days, Jeff and I would go to our Uncle Dale's house to play ball. I also recall Uncle Bob teaching us how to play pool. Life was good, very good, and I didn't know how good I had it. One day in our basement, I found a board game the previous owner had left behind, All-Star Baseball. It had discs with players' stats and a spinner. Before computers and video games, this board game was heaven. I loved this game so much, I have kept it for over 56 years. I also kept the box scores of every game I played, and I still have those box scores. I don't throw away memories. Now, the real All-Star game in 1970 was unforgettable. It ended with Pete Rose barreling into catcher Ray Fosse at home plate to win the game in extra innings. And I watched the whole game. It was electric. '70s music was legendary. Simon and Garfunkel, the Jackson 5, the Beatles' Final Echoes, Creedence Clearwater Revival, the Carpenters, the soundtrack of America, and of my summer of 1970. On TV, my brothers and I raced home for reruns of Gilligan's Island. We also loved Flippo the Clown, Speed Racer, Johnny Quest, and Saturday reruns of Lost in Space. Cleveland stations like WUAB Channel 43 and WJW Channel 8 on Saturdays played Laurel and Hardy shorts that made me howl with laughter. We only had 3 networks and PBS in 1970, but that was all we needed. On Saturdays, Jeff and I would race home by 1 p.m. for the baseball game of the week. There was only one baseball game a week on TV in the summer of 1970. Just one. And at night, we watched Hawaii Five-0. Jack Lord, he was intense. That is still one of my favorite shows today. And just a few blocks away was the Carnegie Library, our sanctuary. Jeff and I developed a love for books, statistics, and writing things down. Jeff wrote box scores in pencil. We both loved Pistol Pete Maravich and tracked his stats religiously. And I still have those box scores Jeff wrote down 56 years ago. We had perfect routines, and looking back, God gave us a perfect life. I'm just not sure we all knew how perfect we had it. By the fall of 1970, things began to shift. I developed an abscessed tooth that infected my jaw. I looked like Muhammad Ali had punched me in the face. Surgery followed. The year before, my appendix had burst. And now this. I was becoming a burden to my mom and dad, as well as towering over my small brothers, playing pranks and causing chaos. Also in the fall of 1970, South School was torn down. A new modern building replaced it, which seemed to be a metaphor for how our old world was changing. My brothers and I were scattered to different schools. I started at the junior high in the fall of 1970. I remember in September, Monday Night Football debuted, the very first game. Our Uncle Dale came over for the first game ever of Monday Night Football. Cleveland beat the New York Jets and one of my heroes, Joe Namath. In November, I turned 13 on Friday the 13th. Was this an omen for things to come? My childhood was over. I was officially a teenager. Christmas was Mom's masterpiece. She brought all the Butterman family traditions to life. A real tree, bubble lights, tinsel icicles, big lights that would be a fire hazard today, cream-filled chocolate bells, peanut brittle, bright old-style wrapping paper. She didn't put presents out until Christmas Eve after we went to bed. My brothers still believed in Santa Claus. Now, I tried to tell them Santa was a false rumor, and they ran to Mom and tattled on me. They sang like canaries. Christmas morning, I remember I got Chinese checkers, a hockey game with levers, Rock'em Sock'em robots, and a spinning tops battle game. All classics now. In 1970, cars, games, sports, music, they were all classics. It was all perfect. 1970 was the last year of my youth, a year of change and turmoil in the world. But in our home, we tried to stay the same. The world we lived in 1970 is gone now, almost an illusion when I look back. I didn't know how good I had it. And that right there is what separates the Smith from the myth. The myth says childhood is simple. The Smith says childhood is sacred. The myth says nostalgia is a trick. The Smith says nostalgia is a treasure. The myth says you can't go home again. The Smith says you can, if only in your memories and in my podcasts. So that's 1970, a year of baseball and brothers, microwaves, museums, and mischief. A year when the world shook, but our little corner stayed steady. A year when I learned who I was and who I wasn't. A year that lives in my heart like a warm summer evening at Westinghouse Field. Thanks for joining me on this journey back to 1970. My name is Brian Smith. And remember, sometimes the smallest towns hold the biggest stories. Sometimes the simplest years teach the deepest lessons. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to look back and realize you were living in a Norman Rockwell painting all along.